This is a little bit of an impromptu video, but it is something that I've been thinking about for a little while, and I did actually try and do something similar a while back, but I never really put it out. So, just very briefly, I thought it'd be maybe of some interest to go over what my favourite snare drum heads are, and also a little tip that I've found through experience from actually 2 drums that I have within 2 feet of me right now. I've got one over there and one on the kit right now. And what I found as a solution to go forward from basically trying every head that I had and never getting a sound out of them that I like. So, but first of all, head choices. Now, I really grew up using Remo. I did dabble with Aquarian for a little bit in the 1990s, found they weren't for me. I have some Aquarian heads in the other room for snare drums. I'll probably put them on some drums at some point, but I've always really been a Remo person. And then more recently, in the last few years, I've also started to try Evans as well, and I've really liked the results of the Evans, especially the UV1 heads, the fairly recent ones, and actually the UV2s as well, which are on the kit behind me. But this isn't going to be a debate over the virtues of one company over the other. I don't care. I like both. And as I said, I have nothing against any other head manufacturers either. These are my experiences. These are my choices. These are what I like. But anyway, I always grew up with basically the classic Remo coated Ambassador as being my main head choice, and I think there's a reason why so many people use it, so many pro drummers use it. It's because it's easy to tune and it just gives a very clear, defined, classic snare drum sound. It's like the SM57 microphone on the snare drum. It just gives you a classic snare drum sound, and I've always gone for that, and always generally been really happy. When Remo had some issues with their coating process a few years ago, that did kind of inspire me to go off and choose and try and choose different heads within their range, and that also that was really the motivation for also checking out Evans coated heads as well. But my first, I'd hate to think how many snare drums in here have a coated Ambassador batter head on them. Probably, I would say probably at least 60% of them, I'm going to guess. It might well be more, to be honest, but so that's always been my classic head choice, with the Ambassador snare side underneath. I've occasionally gone for a Diplomat snare side, and I have one drum, and it's the vintage Ludwig Pioneer, the green gold green one. It's the one with the absolutely hideous colour scheme on it, and that has an Emperor snare side on it. It's the only Emperor snare side head I've ever seen, but that also has a coated Ambassador on the top. And it sounds great, actually, as a combo on that particular drum. It's not like the regular Emperor. It's actually not a 2-ply head. It's just slightly thicker than the Ambassador. But as I said, anyway, my classic snare drum head choice is the Remo coated Ambassador. Other Remo heads, though, that I've been getting into are the white suede Ambassador. I had that on the Craviotto 13x7 with the wood hoops, if you've seen that video. I had it on there, or one on there, and I absolutely loved the sound of that drum. I really did. It sounded fantastic. And then I had a little bit of an accident in here, and one of the, I'll put a picture on the screen of what this looks like if you're not familiar. One of the Donette bass drum spurs. I was getting it down from sort of up there, and unfortunately I didn't realise it was on top of something, fell down, went straight through the snare head, and that was the end of that. And I put a coated CS dot on there, and it actually, to be honest, it sounds great as well, but it just doesn't have the same thing as that white suede. But that leads me nicely on to the coated CS reverse dot, also by Remo, another classic snare drum. sound and snare drum head. I've got a few drums with that on. The spot underneath the head, it gives basically, as far as I'm concerned anyway, gives two things. Dries the sound out very slightly, and also gives it a little bit more strength in the middle of the head. And if you're a harder player, then that's possibly something you want to possibly consider. I have, as I said, I have that kind of dotted around on the odd snare drum in here. Other Remo heads that I kind of like. I've got a few drums with actually two variations of the fibre skin. I've got fibre skin ambassadors on a couple of drums, and I've also got fibre skin diplomat batter heads on a couple of drums as well. I mean, admittedly, they're not the type of drums that I'm going to go out and batter down the local pub. Not that I really batter drummers anyway, but that's I put them on more sort of what I would deem to be sort of specialist drums, something like the Craviottos or anything similar to that. I think my Tama Artstar, the Cordia reissue one, has actually got a diplomat on it. But it's a nice drum. That's a Russ Miller thing, actually, the diplomat. I think that works probably better with the lighter playing and brushes. But it's a slightly different sound, as is the fibre skin overall. It's the sort of plastic version of the more traditional, calf head, really. But that works on a couple of drums. But that's a little bit more, as I said, of a niche thing. It's not something that I would put on my, everyday type of snare drum. Moving over to Evans, and this is actually part of the reason why I'm doing this video. As I said, I'll come to that in a minute. But the Evans UV1 head, something I've really been getting into a lot more. I've just put one on. So I'm not going to play it now. That'll be in another video. But the IOT Keplinger here, I've just put a UV1 on here, and it sounds fantastic. But the UV1 head is a slightly different process which Evans uses. It is a coated head, but it's not the same type of coating as the regular G1, or in fact like a Remo coated head either. Gives a slightly different sound, and I've got the UV1s on the Star Classic Maple, the purple kit, the violet shade kit. And I've got, as I said, a couple of snare drums as well. I really like that sound. I've also got a couple of drums with G1s on, which are basically the equivalent of the Remo coated ambassador. Again, the coating is slightly different, so it affects the sound in a slightly different way. But I think they both the coated ambassador and the coated G1, and I'll say as well the UV1, they're very much a great benchmark head if you just want a very sort of straight ahead snare sound, straight ahead classic snare sound really. And all three heads will do high, low, whatever, and they work basically. That's the thing. Other Evans heads which I've got, I like to basically pick up sort of slightly more, for me, out there heads occasionally. So I've got some of the sort of like the Remo, I think it's like the X14 and stuff. The slightly thicker head designed for heavier playing, and I'll put those occasionally on different drums just to set them up differently, usually with something specific in mind, like some of the thicker shell drums, which I'm more likely to take out when I'm playing outside or something where I'm hitting a little bit harder. Alternatively, I think the Evans, I think it's the G14. Or I think I can't remember the dry one with the pinholes. I've got one of the two of those knocking around as well. So I use those just for sort of different different textures within, as I said, for different snare drums. But they're my main choices, and I do actually use those particular heads on toms as well. I'm not really a single ply head on toms person. As I said, on the maple violet shade, I do have UV ones, and I think they work very well on that particular shell. And I think the only other kit that I can recall straight off that has single ply heads on them is actually the Sakai Trilogy, and that's still got the stock heads on it because they just sounded so good on those shells. But the other thing that I wanted to cover, and this is something that I found again today, I have that Keplinger, which I mentioned, and also the, and it just works out that I've got the Club Custom kit set up here, and it was one of the Club Custom snare drums that I have that I was having the problem with. Now, I have two Club Custom snare drums. One came with the kit, and I had one originally anyway. Now, the one that came with the kit came with Evans heads on it, and I messed around with it, and I think I actually put a UV2 on it in the end, but it did come with two Evans heads on it, and it sounded really good, and I couldn't work out why the other one, the original one I had, that had Remo heads on it, I just couldn't get a sound out of it. And what it was it's got the standard hazy ambassador on the bottom, and I tried all sorts of different batter heads with that Club Custom snare drum. I tried like the standard ambassador, coated ambassador. I had the clear CS dot. I tried a Renaissance. Sorry, actually, it was the coated CS dot for that one. The Renaissance. I tried a fibre skin, I think I put on there. I tried also, and it just wouldn't work. I couldn't get a sound out of it that I really, really liked, or that felt comfortable. And so what I did was I basically put an Evans 300 snare side on the bottom, and then I basically put a UV1 head on the top. And immediately it sounded different, it felt different, and it sounded very much where I wanted that drum to be. I don't know what it is, but the thing is, I'm now more and more convinced that certain drums just work with certain heads. For whatever it was, that particular Club Custom snare drum wasn't working with Remo heads. I put the Evans on, and now they sound fantastic. It sounds fantastic. And the other thing that happened tonight, the Keplinger, again, it had Remo heads on it, it had a hazy on the bottom, and again, I tried several different heads. I had a coated ambassador on it, I tried a CS clear dot on it, and I mean, there was a sound there, but with the CS dot on it particularly, there was this sort of woomph type sound in it that really it had character, but at the same time it's that type of character that would only work in a live setting where the rest of the band, the sound would get, that woomph would get eaten up by the rest of the band. You could never use that sound in a recording situation. You'd have to dampen down the drum or EQ that woomph out. Now I've sat here tonight. I've changed out the heads. I've put a clear 300 on the bottom, and I've put the UV one on the top. I've come in here, and I can still hear that sort of woomphy sound, but it's nowhere near as dominant as it was. It was really with the previous Remo head on. It was really, really obvious, and it was something that would carry on as a sound wave. It would really carry on for a long time. Whereas I've changed this now to the UV1. You can hear it, but it's really, really short now. The note is really, really short. It's quite direct, but the sound of the shell is still there as well. And it's one thing that it's as I said before, it's another thing that's convinced me that if you can't get a sound that you like out of your drum, just spend the 30 quid or whatever it is in dollars, and maybe just try a different brand. I mean, you might be able to get away with a different combo. I've never really managed to get away with like an Evans on top and a Remo on the bottom, or the other way around. I've never found that the combination of the two manufacturers' heads, just as a whole, never really seemed to get on. I think I may have one snare drum where I did get away with it. I'm pretty sure I do. Somewhere, but I couldn't off the top of my head remember which one it was. But I've always basically matched brands top and bottom. But if you're not in a position to do that, obviously keep the snare side head as is, and then try the top head. But like I said, that's never worked for me. I've always found that I like just the same brand, top and bottom. But with this Keplinger, as I said, I've come in here tonight, jammed on it for 5 minutes, and already it's just a massive, massive difference. So my advice, if you're having problems with getting a sound out your snare drum that you're not really completely happy with, then maybe just try a different brand. If you're not stuck in your ways so much, but just try something different, top and bottom, see where it gets you. And you never know, it might work out, as it has done for me on several occasions. So anyway, look, hope that was helpful. Hope you get something out of it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again.